And welcome to the Dean Obeidallah show on Substack Live today. And joining us is Jessica Denson. Many of you know her, tireless activist. Her Lights On with Jessica Denson is on YouTube, wildly popular. Founder of the Removal Coalition. And now she's on Substack, like the rest of the world, at jessicadenson.substack.com. Is it just called the Jessica Denson Substack? Or is
I
there
guess so. I mean, should I have another name for it? I think we're just going to call it Jessica Denson for now.
just that? Well, people know you as Jessica Denson. I'm the Dean's Report because it's so clever because it's my name and it's in any event. So let's talk about you're in D.C. You've been fighting the good fight to get Donald Trump impeached for the longest time, and there's so much more that every time we have a conversation, there's more things that are clearly high crimes and misdemeanors. So before we talk about the status of Al Green and all that, what's your reaction to Trump using ICE and Customs Border Patrol as a personal army, killing Americans? I just talked to a council person in Minneapolis. It's like talking to somebody in Ukraine behind enemy lines. This is unbelievable. They are under a federal occupation now, and they are fearful that people are terrorized and people are being killed.
Dean, being in this work, one thing I have noticed over the past year is almost a sort of numbness to every new horror and every new atrocity that we've seen, not just because I am not constantly disgusted and appalled, but because I am not surprised, because we knew this was coming. Somewhere last week for me, that changed before the execution of Alex Preddy. And I went on my show on Friday night, absolutely livid. I was my own guest, kind of like you are here on Substack sometimes. And I was just had it with the inaction of Congress as people were being tear gassed. This is only after the execution of Renee Good, who at the time was about the 37th person to be killed under the custody of the federal agents, Trump's Gestapo. And that night is when I stayed up literally all night to get this Substack active, because it was that urgent to me to spread my message beyond the one platform that I usually have on YouTube. And then I woke up after a few hours of sleep on Saturday to learn of the execution of Alex Preddy. And over the past few days and week, I think like much of the country, it has been, it's been too much, Dean. It's been too much. And I found myself crying at seeing images of people reunited that had been separated from their loved ones because of this fascist Nazi, so-called immigration enforcement that we have out here. And I don't know what, for me as an activist who has been, like I said, because I'm so in the throes of it, almost isolated from the feelings, to have those feelings returned to me this week. I just want to channel all of that into uncompromising demands on the people who could be stopping this right now.
And who are those people from your point of view that could be stopping?
Congress. It is Congress. And this is what you and I talk about every single time. I mean, we go back to where we started with this, which is them letting the domestic terrorists into office who violated Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, who was an illegal president from day one. And there is one congressman who has been serious in making up for that transgression, and that's Congressman Al Green. And I know we're going to talk a lot more about it, but there is no excuse for anything less than forced votes on impeaching not just the fall people for Donald Trump, his loyalists who are just tools in his tool shed that he can replace and will replace when they're expendable to him. We must be naming and impeaching Donald Trump, and we must be forcing votes on it. And that's the only way to move the needle. And it's the only way. And let's talk about this, Dean, today. I want to game plan this out with you.
Okay, very good. I'm here.
How do we get out of this? How do we get out of this authoritarian nightmare that we're living in? How? I want to know from you.
How do we get out of this?
How do we get out of this?
Well, there's ways to get out of it that I would go to jail for. And
okay, other than those ways.
Okay, some of those ways that involving me being detained without bail. The other way is the most immediate is November with the midterm election, taking the House back, that one. The idea of right now, citizens' action is the only other way, like from national strikes to shutting down things, to pushing Democrats to do the right thing. Again, they're in the minority, but they do have more power in the Senate than they do in the House with the filibuster. So to me, it's a plan long term. There's so many steps to save our nation. The most immediate, from a purely political point of view, is the election. Then it's writing laws that prevent anyone from like Donald Trump ever again being able to destroy our checks and balances, which are all like, oh, no one will ever try to do this. Well, with Donald Trump, they did. But so, I mean,
So can I dissect that a little
I
bit?
like impeach and remove is great. And
Well, let me dissect, because we need to be realistic about how this is going to happen, right?
okay.
Because I know you were one of the biggest champions, and before you and I were talking on the phone, I was one of your biggest fans remotely, because you were one of the few people that was calling out the inaction of Merrick Garland early on. I was, but nobody was listening to me, and I'm like, Dean, yes. And you were calling it day after day after day, and they thought, you're talking about a long plan now, they thought we could play a long plan then. You know, they thought we could punt the accountability for this terrorist down the road, and somehow we would get out of this scot-free and come out on the other side of it a free country. And look how that worked out for us. And, you know, you gave us two options. You said people in the streets and elections. Okay, elections. Well, midterm election. What is Donald Trump doing? Or better question, what is he not doing right now to interfere with the midterm elections? What is he not doing? Yesterday, they raided the Georgia elections office.
I know. And corporate media sucks so bad. And I'm actually writing an article about it. Maybe I'll do a talk tomorrow about it. That the raiding and the seizing of the Fulton County election results from 2020, it is not about the past. It is about the future, my friends.
Yes, it is.
You know, the corporate media, like, he's obsessed with 2020. No, he's obsessed with 2026. And they're testing out the playbook now to rig elections in front of our eyes. So to go in there and steal the ballots while they're counting them and declare Republicans the winner. And you go, that's outrageous, Dean. So was the January 6th terrorist attack. That was kind of outrageous, and that happened on our watch as human beings. So yes, anything you can think of Trump doing, he will do it. So so look, they are going to try to cheat before the election, during the voting, and after Democrats win. They're going to try to prevent Democrats who have won from being sworn in and seated. All three of those things are going to happen. We have to be ready for that as well. You know, so I agree. But go ahead. I mean, what is your? Well,
that's the one. So that's the one. That's why I mean, believe me, my God, I'm an American citizen. I love this country. We are about free and fair elections, and I want more than anything to believe that is going to get us out of this. But we simply cannot, with the circumstance that we are faced with, put all of our eggs in that basket. And if we do, and then we are proven sorely wrong that was our escape plan, what are we going to say about what we did now? What are we going to say? And I don't want us to have that collective regret as a nation that we could have been seizing this opportunity to do something, this precious little time that we have. And we said, we're good. We have a midterm election coming up.
So what do we do? I'm all, everybody wants something. I mean, tomorrow's the big walkout, right? That's part of it.
Okay, so I'm glad you talked about that, because first of all, I'm really proud of the organizers, and this was born out of Minneapolis and people in Minnesota, because as someone who has watched the attempts to get a general strike going, this appears to be the most noble and first very serious attempt at doing this.
Okay.
And it's wonderful. Now they have a demand. What is their demand? Their demand is stop funding ICE, which is absolutely, I am 100% on board for. And I'm 100% on board for economic pressure, boycott, strikes. Obviously, we have a corrupt criminal oligarchy that is enabling all of this fascism. So we have to use our economic levers. I, of course, moving forward, and even with our partners that are going to be taking part in events across the country tomorrow, urging people to tie in also the impeachment demand.
Okay.
And to demand more, which is what I wrote about, last night and early this morning, is that if we could harness that energy, that outrage, and understand the full reach of our agency to demand that this government do what it is obligated to do, we would be demanding not just a defunding of ICE, not just the abolishment of this Gestapo force, but a full removal of this terrorist regime, which we're absolutely entitled to. And if every time people got out on the streets and were protesting, striking, taking off work, whatever they're doing now, if that was a unified demand for removal, we would be moving those votes. We would be, I've seen with my movement and the, God knows, heavy-handed attempts to suppress what we're doing, we have made massive progress. So if we can get the mainstream to embrace this impeachment push, we can do it. We can do it.
Yeah. And, the idea, it seems like there's more of an appetite for impeaching Kristi Noem because some Democratic focus group paid for by corporate sponsors says, oh, impeachment, people don't like it. But the point that I keep making is it's not enough to impeach. In your article, too, that you wrote, I plead to my fellow activists, demand more. To me, the demand more was impeach and prosecute. It was like impeach and it's implicit remove. It's not just impeach and prosecute. But so respond to, because people I'm sure say this to you all the time, because they say it to me, well, if you impeach Donald Trump, there's not the votes in the Senate. And I think you make a great argument about the obligation for members of Congress when there's a constitutional violation by the President of the United States. And it's not a calculation, can we win this? The calculation is more, it's our job to protect the Constitution when there's high crimes and misdemeanor by the President. And we have an obligation as stewards of our nation to protect it. So, can you speak to that? Because I know that's an issue that comes up to me, but you're the one out there fighting this all the time.
Yeah. First of all, the first thing you said is not just impeach and prosecute. Like, that's how I ended the article was,
right,
listen, if you're for conviction and Nuremberg style trials, which I am all for, we have to start with impeachment, right? We have to get them out so that we actually have a functioning justice system to hold them accountable. That's the impeachment is the bare minimum. So let's get on board with the bare freaking minimum, right? So, and your question, which I totally forget.
No, it's about what do you say to people who are going to tell you the real math? Because they say all the time, we don't have the votes in the Senate. You need 2/3 of the Senate. Everybody knows this.
This is just so frustrating because that's why I started off the question with what are our options, right? If this is our only guaranteed option, because you can't rig an impeachment. You can pressure people. You can, Donald Trump obviously has his sycophants, and I'm so eager to start pressuring the frig out of the Republicans, but I'm just stuck on the Democrats, so I can't even get to them. But if we accept that our one best option to truly end this nightmare, which, by the way, it scares Donald Trump more than anything. He is truly afraid of impeachment.
He is. It's weird.
If we are not even willing to try to use the narrative and hijacking this is what this guy does. This is what whatever scope he has been legitimately successful, he is successful at, is hijacking a narrative. We have to take it back from him. We should be forcing votes on impeachment every day. The Democrats, just because they're in the minority, do not have an exemption from being able to do this. Any one of them can. Any senator can be calling for the impeachment and getting the mainstream media to talk about it. Governors, very popular governors like Pritzker, like Newsom, like Tim Walz, could all be saying, Tim Walz, God bless him, called it out immediately, called Alex Preddy's murder a murder. He, too, could be saying this regime needs to be impeached and removed. Anybody in the Democratic Party could be mainstreaming this conversation so we can move the needle. And if we just, this is my plea and what I was trying to convey in that article, is we have essentially thrown our hands up, accepted the argument that they have given us because they don't want to invest the fight. They don't want to try. They just want to sail on down to the midterms that may or may not happen. And not do their job of actually honoring their oath in between elections. And we're just like, yep, we're covering you. You're good. Are you kidding me? I'm not covering for these people.
I agree. It's odd the idea of the people who got us to the place where we've lost the White House, the Senate, and the House are telling us the best strategy to go forward is kind of laughable, isn't it? The idea that, they know best. The idea of elevating the impeachment, but the removal, that what Trump has done is such a great violation of our Constitution, of our laws. That's so important because I think sometimes Democrats forget one of the tools is the media and is getting out in the media and media framing, which Trump is, that's all he does because the corporate media does whatever he wants and he'll say it. So I think you're right. I think getting out there more and more and saying, even if we're not having a vote today, you're not going to have a vote in the House every day. They're barely working because of Speaker Johnson. They're barely there. It's like a part-time job being in Congress right now. They're out right now, the House. The Senate's in, the House is out. The House comes back next week. But for Democrats in one voice around the nation saying over and over, this man needs to be impeached and prosecuted. I wish they would say that as opposed to impeach and remove. The same way Republicans said repeal and replace about ACA every day. Even when they didn't have the vote. Hundreds of times to repeal it, even though they didn't have the votes to do it. But that was their message. Now, ultimately, it ended up not being good for them because people found out the ACA was good. No one's going to discover Trump is good. He's bad. We know he's bad. And the idea, and they can talk about the things like the New York Times had a great article last week. Trump has made $1.4 billion in 1 year in the White House, folks. $1.4 billion personally. He's gotten from the plane from Qatar to shaking down new media outlets. Those lawsuits, as Jessica, I'm sure you know, those lawsuits against media outlets like CBS were in his personal name, not the government. So the settlements went to him of $15 million and $20 million. And he's suing Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan for $5 billion. That's for his pocket. But he's using the threat of the government behind him to make more money. And the crypto stuff is all off the charts. The New York Times did a great job. So you've got the rank corruption. We've never seen a more corrupt president, to violations of attacking another country, kidnapping leaders, killing American citizens, occupying his own people, demonizing us as the enemy. That's not a high crime and misdemeanor. Nothing is. So tell us about Al Green. So Al Green is the champion of the removal coalition that Jessica founded. He's been at all your events. He introduced a resolution before. Then another article, it was more votes on the side of Democrats. What's going on now?
Well, he, as I pointed out in that piece, came out on Tuesday and said what I was so grateful that he said, and knowing him as well as I do at this point, knew that he would have to say, which is impeaching Nome isn't enough. And you got to impeach the architect of this. And he promised, as he has promised to us before and promised to me personally and to our movement, that he will bring new articles of impeachment against Trump, and that he will force a vote. As I mentioned before, this is so key. If you are joining us, and please do, in the push for impeachment, you have to push them to force votes. This bullshit about a drawn out impeachment inquiry is just that. It doesn't have to happen. This can happen like this. It happened with Andrew Johnson with one sentence written on a napkin and they voted on it. So it can happen now. But Al Green came out and said that he will file new articles of impeachment. I wish I could give you a specific date. There's very likely Al Green's going to join me on my show tomorrow, Lights On, and I will ask him again, as I always do, to pin that down for me. But I know one thing for sure. He's not always the fastest, but he is true to his word. And he's probably tragically going to do it before somebody else. And I don't say tragically because I don't want him to be the first, but because I just wish somebody was doing it tomorrow. But he will be filing new articles of impeachment against Trump.
It's interesting. I wonder what people who are tuning in think about other things for Democrats to do, because I'm always, from my radio show to here when I do Substack Lives alone, that I call them You Are My Guest, I'm so intrigued because I learn a lot from people who are on our side. Corporate media ignores everyone's voice unless you're some big elite person. But my goal is always to amplify them. And I'm curious about what people want to see done, because taking the fight in the media is so important. It's so effective. And what Democrats don't do is they're not creative in the media. Now, some of the younger ones are. AOC, and some of them just go to Instagram and tell their story. But it's about creating like little.
Even AOC, this is what I want people to know. Like, even your favorite Democrats, the ones that you think are creative and boundary pushers and your best allies, they are not doing what the 78-year-old congressman who's being pushed out for the mere fact of his age, by the way.
I know, the redistricting in Texas.
Yeah, they are. The AIPAC-backed Democrats are trying to push out Al Green in Texas, the one man who is doing more to save our democracy than anyone else. And you have younger people like AOC, like Jasmine Crockett. I could go on and on and on and on, who will give you an excuse for why this doesn't need to be done right now, or have not taken the initiative themselves to file articles of impeachment. A few weeks ago, AOC was asked, do you think he's committed impeachable offenses? And she said, yes, of course. But she said, for me personally, and I'm paraphrasing, there's just so many impeachable offenses, I don't know where to start. Well, pick one. Pick one. I mean, can you imagine if every member of the Democratic Party just picked one? of all of that list that you were ticked off a few minutes ago and filed articles of impeachment? I mean, these are shameful excuses.
Right. And that would amplify the story that we're trying to get out, that this is not a normal presidency by any way. Because they go like, how come you're doing impeachment every day, having a new article? Because that's how bad and lawless and corrupt this administration is. And someone pointed out in the chat here on the side that one of the things is Trump set up an offshore bank account in Qatar. He took the oil from Venezuela and is selling it. And I just saw before we started, American Airlines is now going to fly for the first time to Venezuela since 2019. Not that there's freedom for the people. It's just now the dictator in charge is on board with Donald Trump, is giving him the oil. So now American Airlines can make profits in this beautiful corporate world that we live in now. And I'm being
let me never fly on American Airlines again.
So this is, and again, there was no freedom for the people of Venezuela. It was all bullshit. It was all a lie. It was give me money. So Trump sells millions of oil on the market. He puts it into an offshore account, which is not conspiracy. It's literally in there. And they go, we're doing it to avoid any kind of sanctions. Sanctions by who? What, is that because you want to keep the money when you leave? And he's saying sanctions by our allies. Do you think Great Britain's going to sanction money in a U.S. Treasury account that's because of Venezuela oil? Of course they're not going to do that. This is for Trump to have a slush fund. And it's just like, well, whatever. It's Trump being Trump. What has happened to us as a nation that this is Trump being Trump is an answer. So again, Democrats, if they kept all the time, article impeachment, it's going to break through and people are going to say, wow. And I know there are people who go like, affordability is the key issue. That is a big issue. That is really important. That affects people's lives. I'm not saying it's one or the other, but right now, this is really big. And it's just, so what do you want to see? Right now, they're debating in the Senate. It looks like some procedural vote didn't pass. Is it shut down the government over DHS funding? Is that where you come down? Or is there something else that should be done? Like, what's your take?
Yeah, I was thinking about this when you asked me that question. And I just, I want, like with everything else, I want the demand to be higher. I don't want the demand just to be over DHS funding. I'd like to see the government threaten to be shut down unless Republicans get on board to impeach or remove him. But it's a little tricky because you do need the government open and you do need the House out. Actually, here's the thing. Mike Johnson closes down the House when the government is shut down, which is actually not a requirement. This man shuts down, like you started off talking about, this guy shuts down the House all the time. He doesn't want any business going on in there. So I have one, very clear objective from the standpoint of our movement for wanting at least the House of Representatives to stay open. But no, I think they have to use as much leverage as possible. And if they're going to do it for DHS funding, for God's sakes, we have to pull the plug. We have to pull the money from this terrorist operation that's going on right now.
To me, when you look at ICE, there's no way to reform an agency that's this corrupted. That's the problem. Like if it was one bad agent in one city, you're like, okay, that's something. They are terrorizing communities by design, from Maryland to California to Massachusetts to Minnesota, everywhere in between. The only place they're not terrorizing is the red states, because they're not sending them there to terrorize. They're sending them to blue states to terrorize people. So Trump has declared...
Or to get voting records, like Pam Bondi said for Minnesota, right? She said, if you hand over your voting records, we'll pull out. ICE will pull out.
So let's talk tomorrow. If people want to know more about the nationwide day of no school, no work, and no shopping, no school, man, it takes me back. I wish I was in school still. I'm like, I can't go, Mom. We're walking out against Trump. Like, but you're in 8th grade. I'm like, yeah, but you got to stay out of school. What's going on tomorrow? And is your organization, the Removal Coalition, are you guys involved?
We're not directly involved, although, like I said, a number of our partners are partaking in these events and amplifying the impeachment demand.
Right.
I think it's, what I have seen and what we did. I think the last time you and I talked was we joined with Women's March for the walk-in for impeachment, and you're seeing a lot more very rapid response actions, which I'm very encouraged by. We have to be quicker about this. We have to be more nimble about this. I wrote at the end of my article about the No Kings, which they announced yesterday for March 28th. And as we have been before, we'll have a lot of our partners nationwide calling theirs remove the regime, or in some way, shape, or form messaging for impeachment and removal. And I'll end with a little bit of like insider feeling on all of this. I was a little bit disappointed and even kind of shocked to see them not rebrand No Kings for this third rollout, to not see them add more of an action call in light of all of the horrors that we've witnessed and some of the criticisms that are not unjustified of the lack of a call for action in those previous No Kings protests, other than what we have done and what people have done on their own. So when I say this, I am serious. We can't squander these opportunities of millions of people in the streets, whether they're striking, whether they're there for a national day of action that's called by No Kings Coalition or Indivisible or whoever else. We cannot squander those opportunities to demand what we are fully entitled to. We don't have to tolerate it. And it's simply, like I say over and over again, a question of how much of our own power and agency we are willing to claim.
Right.
So
And
claim more.
I think with No Kings, the title, because it's branded now and it's known, I can get it. But like a movie sequel, there should be like a sub like No Kings, this time it's personal. Or like, like in every movie, like this, No Kings, impeach and remove, or impeach and prosecute, which is what I would love. That kind of stuff. Right. That's what I want to see. Like, get the bastard out. No Kings.
Yeah.
Along those lines. So before we wrap up, Jessica, if people want to sign up for your Substack, where can they go? And also, when can they check out Lights On with Jessica Denson on YouTube?
So the Substack is here. I mean, you guys know this platform better than I do. I'm still trying to figure things out, but I'm pretty sure you see my name and you just click and subscribe. I think I'm going to be like Dean for now, where I keep it free, but you really, I mean, to be honest with you, this is my bread and butter. YouTube is Lights On is my only income. Okay. We are not paid activists. There's no such thing in my space for that. My bread and butter comes from Lights On. So if you want to do a paid subscription, that would be wonderful. It supports my work. It helps me do more. And then Lights On is always live Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on YouTube. I am intending on bringing all of that content here as well. And doing more of these lives and additional content as I can. As my non-sleep schedule permits.
So you don't get your check from George. I get this George Soros check every week.
Every week.
Unfortunately, you don't get your George Soros check that we all get. We're all paid. And it's remarkable as Trump calls the people in Minneapolis page agitators. And that is the exact same language of dictators in other countries who say they're outside agitators and all that kind of stuff. But Jessica, well, thank you for being on. I hope
Thank you for having me, Dean.
Your Substack. I wish you the best with Substack. And thanks for everyone for tuning in here.
Yes.
It's great to see a lot of people I know and some new people from Jessica's world. And I look forward to chat with you, Jessica, and everyone else in the near future, my friend.
Thank you so much.
Get some sleep, but keep fighting.
I will try.
You can't sleep too much fighting to do. All right.